very much. I really appreciate it. You know, I never get applause at the end of my speech, so it's very, very welcome at the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, I have spent 25 years chasing down the concept of resilience. Why do some people stay up when others fall down? What are the qualities that make up resilience, and how can we measure those qualities and boost it in those people who seem to need it most? And I've come to believe that resilience is the single biggest predictor of who succeeds and who does not, and who is happy and who is not. And over the last 4 years, I've come to believe that one of the most important well springs of resilience is connection. Our capacity to connect to something larger than ourselves, a cause that goes beyond our existence, a value system, an institution, something that was here on the planet before we arrived and will be here after we've gone. Let's switch gears. 2,500 years ago, Persia was the dominant world power, and their king, Darius I, had his sights set on Greece. So in 490 BC, he launched, using high-tech computer graphics, the largest fleet ever to set sail in human history to that point. 25,000 troops that he deposited on the shores of Marathon, to the northeast of Athens. The Athenians had seen the ships go by. They knew they were hopelessly outnumbered. 25,000 troops, they could scrounge up 10,000. And so the Athenian generals called for Pheidippides, a foot soldier in their army, a professional messenger, and their fleetest of foot. Just a few technical snafus here. They said to him, "Run and enlist the Spartans' support in this battle," which he did. 150 miles over the worst terrain in Greece. He covered it in 30 hours. The Spartan general said, "It's against our religion to fight until the next full moon." There may have been some politics wrapped up in that religion. Most of us, even the most resilient among us, would probably walk back to Athens with that news. Not Pheidippides. He ran back the way he came, just as fast as he could. The Athenians marched out to Marathon, met the Persians. They armored up, and under a blistering summer sun, counting Pheidippides in their number, they fought heroically for the very survival of their city. 5 days later, a miracle had occurred. 6,400 Persians lay dead. 192 Athenians had lost their lives. It was a stunning victory. The Persians had lost their taste for battle. They loaded back into the ships, set sail for home, but the Athenian generals realized they were horribly exposed. The Athenian ships were fast, and they could make it to Athens before the Athenian land army could get back. And so, according to certain accounts, they again summoned Pheidippides. "Run, strip off your armor as fast as you can, get to the city, warn them," which he did, and Athens survived. But the exertions of the last several days had mortally depleted him. And after whispering his warning, he collapsed and died of fatigue. He had literally run himself to death. According to legend, in his honor, the Athenians ran a foot race from the battle site in Marathon to Athens every year. It's a distance of 26 miles. They call it the Marathon. Ladies and gentlemen, how can we possibly explain the deeds of Pheidippides? How can we account for his willingness to lay down his life for a cause? It seems to run counter to any psychological or evolutionary theory of what motivates human beings. I believe he was inspired, motivated by his connection to something larger than himself. His city, his community, his people. Let's fast forward. It's 2006, and I've just become faculty with the Brookings Institution, and I've run headlong into a riddle. And this is it. There are many, many research articles that tell us the kinds of factors that keep people satisfied and happy in their jobs. There are 25 of them. They're things like autonomy, the ability to hire and fire, reliable budgets, decent pay. And on close examination, we can see that in the federal government, they have approximately none of those. None. And yet study after study shows they are significantly more satisfied, and my work showed that they are significantly more resilient than their private sector peers. I could not unwrap this riddle until I met a certain gentleman. He was born in Waukegan, Illinois, and graduated from high school with great grades, had several scholarship offers, but college just wasn't right for him at that time. So he got a job on a tractor plowing fields. He said to me, you know how it is. One day becomes 10. It's a decade later, I'm still sitting on this tractor and I'm still plowing fields. One winter day, it's minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit and a wind is blowing. He described the conditions as brisk. He said, in that moment, I decided, I don't need to do this anymore. In that moment, he decided to become a rocket scientist. He's now a deputy director at NASA. I asked him, why did you join NASA? You could have made a boatload more money in a private aeronautics firm. He said, well, there was a prestige to working with NASA, stability in a government job, and besides, the NASA folk told me I wouldn't have to wear a tie. I asked him, why do you stay? He looked me dead in the eyes and he said, because every day I wake up and I know that what I do contributes to the welfare of my community, the security of my nation, and betters the world. Ladies and gentlemen, right there and then, I realized why the feds were more satisfied and more resilient. Through their jobs, they were connected to something bigger than themselves. They wore the badge of Pheidippides. I began to do research. I asked thousands of people, why do you stay in your job? And their responses fit into three neat categories. Some said, I'm just there for the pay, the lowest level, level 1. Some said, yeah, I need the money, but I also like the work, I like my colleagues. And some who were connected at the highest level, level 3, said, yeah, I need the pay, like the work, but there's something else. I feel like I contribute to something bigger than myself. My organization does good in the world. It helps the community. It aids my nation. And we found that there were distinct benefits as you moved up these levels of connection. From 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, people were significantly more satisfied in their jobs. And this was not the only benefit that accrued. For 25 years, I've been chasing down this concept of resilience, and for each and every step from 1 to 2, and 2 to 3, in how connected you are to your job, we see higher and higher levels of resilience. And guess what? Those folk in the federal government were connected at the highest level, of level 3, at twice the rate of their private sector peers. The riddle was solved. Connection matters. Connection to your job matters. It's what matters now, and it's what matters next. In 1984, the National Institute of Mental Health conducted a nationwide survey of 20,000 people, and they determined whether these people had ever in their lives been clinically depressed. They found that of those who were 65 and older in the survey, 1.3% of them had at some point in their lives experienced a clinical depression. Let's set that at both the actual and predicted value, and let's assume that depression is like any other malady, disease, disorder, that the longer you've been on the planet, the more likely it is you would have had it. We should then see less and less prevalence of depression in younger and younger age groups. Is that what the study uncovered? Obviously not. Why would I be wasting your time with this group? It found higher and higher levels of prevalence in the other age groups. In those who are aged 25 to 44 in the survey, 16 times the level of depression we would have predicted. This study had uncovered a veritable epidemic of depression, a tenfold increase in depression across 2.5 generations. And when we asked ourselves, why is this happening? Asked it of our psychologists, psychiatrists, religious leaders, political leaders, sociologists, anthropologists, a compelling explanation began to emerge. We were getting more depressed because we were getting less connected. We got more depressed because we had fewer connections. We'd lost connections to our extended family, our community, our political institutions, even the office of the presidency. We'd lost our religion. We'd lost our faith. We'd lost our spirituality. We had plunged headlong in the search for individual satisfaction at the expense of greater meaning And ladies and gentlemen, if your world is the world, and you experience an adversity no matter how big, it's a speed bump. If the world is you, and you experience an adversity, no matter how small, it's a major catastrophe. And so I did some research. I asked people, what gives you the greatest meaning in your lives? And their responses fit into 4 neat categories. Some said, I'm just there for the individual goals, big corner office, climbing Mount Everest. Others said, yeah, I've got some goals, but I'm focused right now on my family, spending time with my spouse, nurturing my children. Some said, yeah, goals and family, but I also give to charities and I spend a lot of time in community activities. And others, connected at the highest level, level 4, gave expression to their connection to God, a faith, their own unique brand of spirituality, an eternal set of values, an institution like the Boy Scouts of America. The litmus test, it turns out, for level 4 is that they were connected to something that was here before they arrived on the planet and will be here after they've gone, and benefits accrue. The stronger your connection to your life, from 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, we see people are significantly more satisfied with their lives. And it's not the only benefit. From level 1 to level 2, from 2 to 3 and 4, we see higher and higher levels of resilience. Connection to your life matters. It's what matters now, and it's what matters next. Ladies and gentlemen, since December of 2007, we've entered a dark tunnel, the greatest economic collapse since the Great Depression of the 1930s, and it's taken an unbelievable human toll. Since 2008, 3,700 people a day have declared personal bankruptcy. 2,600 families a day lost their homes. Almost 7,000 Americans each day lost their jobs. This is nothing short of a social tsunami. So how are we as a nation coping? Well, some of us, not me, but some of us are doing brilliantly. In December of 2008, I identified a group of people who represented the intersection of 2 sets. First, they'd been hit harder by this recession than anyone else. They'd lost jobs, houses, they'd moved back in with relatives, their dreams of retirement and lifestyle up in smoke. And second, they were doing better than anyone else. Even those of us whose lives were relatively untouched by the recession. No matter what psychological measure I threw at them, they hit it back, showing me that they were not just surviving, they were thriving and flourishing. These people had been through the worst and they were doing the best. So in honor of Pheidippides, I called them the Marathon Club. And I was not at all surprised to find that they were more resilient than us, and significantly so on 5 of the 7 factors that make up that concept. How did they get to be so strong? Well, they were more connected than we were. As the recession swept over us, if you were like me, you developed a bunker mentality. And if you were like me, you hunkered down and you watched Netflix videos and ate Jiffy Pop. But the Marathon Club instinctively knew they needed to reach out to bigger and wider connections. In fact, in the midst of this recession, 31% of us were connected to our lives at a 3 or a 4. We were involved in our communities. We were connected to some slice of eternity, our religion, our faith, our spirituality, a value system. That was true of 100% of the Marathon Club. They automatically amped up their community involvement. They dug deep and re-embraced their faith. One of the members of the Marathon Club, after sending out 400 unsuccessful job applications, said, I'm going to take a rest from that for a while, and went around the country talking to people about cancer awareness. Another member of the Marathon Club, herself in personal crisis, drove 30 miles to attend a memorial service for a complete stranger, a man who had lost his wife and 2 small daughters in a highly publicized jet crash. This member of the Marathon Club and her husband a year earlier had lost their house. A few months later, they were moving into a small apartment. They were on the eve of having their car repossessed, and still her thoughts were not about herself, but about her community and about her faith. The rest of us, well, we didn't act so nobly, and we really didn't cope so well. In December of 2008, we reported to the American Psychological Association, 80% of us, that we were stressed, depressed, angry, fatigued, sleep deprived, all because of the economy. You know, one of the first cost-saving measures we took was to jettison our gym memberships. 1.2 million of us cashed them in, just when we needed to be fit and healthy. And we took those savings, and we spent them on astrologers. All because we wanted a warm body across from us, even if it were a warm body with a crystal ball and a headscarf, telling us that it was all going to be okay. But is it going to be okay? The Bureau of Labor and Statistics defines a discouraged worker as someone who has been unemployed for so long they've stopped looking for a job. In September of 2009, there were 700,000 discouraged workers in these United States. In September of 2010, 1.2 million. That means over the last year, 1,300 people a day simply gave up. Our connections have taken a hit. In 2008, 40% of us were at the highest level of connection to our jobs. We were there because we felt that we contributed to something greater than ourselves. In 2010, the figure is halved. In 2008, 20% of us were connected at the highest level to our lives, embracing something that was here on the planet before we arrived and will be here after we've gone. The figure now stands at 10%, exactly half. So what do we do from here? He was prisoner number 119104 in a Nazi concentration camp, but before the war, he was the eminent psychiatrist Dr. Viktor Frankl. He writes of a time in the death camp when his life changed, when he forced his attention away from the day-to-day scrabble to survive, to two eternal truths: love and meaning. And from that moment on, he fought to survive, fight so that he might write the definitive work on the psychology of the concentration camp so it would never happen again. Many years later, he was asked by the media, "Why do you think your book, Man's Search for Meaning, became an international bestseller?" He said, "Because if millions of people reach out for a book just because the title offers an answer to a question of the meaning of life, then the question of the meaning of life must be burning under their fingernails." Burning under their fingernails. As a nation, we've reached a crossroads. We can continue on individual pursuits, or we can begin to foster our connections. I'm not here to proselytize. This isn't a tent revival meeting. I'm a humble social scientist, but the data are incontrovertible. Connection matters. It always has. It mattered long before Pheidippides. It certainly matters now, and it's what matters next. Thank you so much.